three open heart surgeries. That's kind of unique. And, you can, a lot of lessons from open heart surgeries. Your heart is stopped for some period of time. And the longer they keep it stopped, the harder it is to get it started again. But if I look at rebounding from surgical and health issues, they don't hold a candle to, rebounding from the death of my son. Eric was born with some heart difficulties. Eric was in the pediatric intensive care for over a year. And then we had one final heart surgery for Eric. And in that surgery, he passed away and went through a couple of years of really tough times as a family.
Welcome to Linda's Corner, where we bring more hope, healing, and happiness to the world. My name is Linda Bjork, and today we're going to be talking about healing our hearts, literally and figuratively. I'm delighted to welcome Steve Larsen. Steve is a serial entrepreneur who helped shape the digital age, creating technologies that would later power Facebook, Google, and Amazon. He's a car and motorcycle enthusiast and the author of My Heart Has Been in It from the Start. You can learn more about Steve at his website, stevelarsen.net, and I'll include that link in the show notes. Welcome, Steve. I'm so glad that you could join with me today.
Oh, thank you, Linda. And like I tell you, I've been listening to your podcast for the last several weeks. I just am amazed at the kind of guests that you have, the diversity and the intelligence and the points of view. I was just blown away.
Thank you. And I think that's part of what we're going to be talking about today is some of the diversity, how we're not just one thing. Sometimes they want us, I don't know, the proverbial they, to focus on you specialize in one thing. And that is wonderful.
Yeah.
I don't feel comfortable pigeonholed in a tiny thing. I feel like there's a lot of aspects to life. And that's what we're doing is we're connecting with real people to help different aspects of our life be better. So thank you for being a part of this and helping to add your thread to this tapestry of beauty. And as we're talking about healing hearts, you have a lot of experience, both physically and emotionally. So is it okay if we start with the physical? You've had lots of heart surgery.
Yeah, the three open heart surgeries, that's kind of a little bit unique.
Yep.
The first one was when I was a kid. And then and of course, back in that time, they thought if they fixed it surgically, it would stay fixed. But then we found out years later that it comes with other problems. So I ended up having two more when I was older. And, you can, a lot of lessons from open heart surgeries. Your heart is stopped for some period of time. And the longer they keep it stopped, the harder it is to get it started again. But the whole, if I look at rebounding from surgical and health issues, they don't hold a candle to, rebounding from the death of my son. And then the joy that happens, 25 years later, when I realized that I have a daughter who I'd never known about, who comes out of the woodwork at 39 years old and brings with her two grandchildren. I mean, how cool is that?
So you had a surprise phone call. Congratulations, it's a daughter. She's 39.
Yes.
And congratulations, you also have two grandchildren. So are these your only grandchildren or were they the
Yes,
first?
they're my only grandchildren. But probably more importantly, for my daughter, she has a sister and she's now a niece to two lovely creatures who, when we met them, they were like 10 and 12 years old. And the older one just graduated from high school. So we went up for her high school reunion. But talk about changing your life and changing the life for my daughter, who, lost her her brother when she was 8 years old, and that was a very, very difficult time for her. And to find that she had a sister and nieces is just it's changed her whole life.
Wow. Okay. So you've given us kind of a whole little knot of information. Let's untangle it just a little bit. So let's say here you are, you're married, you have
Yeah.
two children, you have a daughter who's 8 and a son who's 2. Are we right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, Eric, what happened to him?
Well, Eric was born with some heart difficulties, probably somewhat in because of he was my son. And no one really knew that those kinds of things could be passed down. And less than a week after he was born, he went into pediatric intensive care. Usually you go into intensive care and you're there at most 2 or 3 days because either you die or they figure out what's wrong and they move you out to the rest other hospital. Eric was in the pediatric intensive care for over a year. Um,
Whoa.
yeah, just kind of hanging by a thread and they had a couple heart surgeries in there, try to repair. He finally emerged from the hospital, got really, really a lot better, amazingly returned, got all of his growth back that he had missed. And then we had one final elective heart surgery for Eric. Uh, and in that surgery, he passed away. And it was not the fault of his health, but the fault of um, hubris and jealousy on the part of one of the doctors who did a procedure on him that he was specifically forbidden to do in the medical notes and had been warned not to do, but he just thought he knew better. And Eric died in the process. So
Hmm.
we lost Eric and went through about no, a couple of years of really tough times as a family.
I am so sorry. And was
No,
Eric 2 when he passed? So was half of his life in the hospital?
yeah, over half, yeah. But boy, was he a ball when we had him at home. He
Wow.
was just the greatest kid. You would not believe what he was capable of doing and what he did. He just charmed everybody that got within 10 feet of him. He had them wrapped around their finger. Yeah. He's quite a kid, quite a kid. Yeah.
And you had to deal not only with the loss of a child, but the feelings of this didn't need to be.
Well, yes, and what to do about your daughter who's going through a really tough time. We finally found a therapist for her, and it took a couple years, but she came out of it very well. But she had a really tough time. I had a really it's very interesting that those kind of experiences do uh you're always hesitant to say that there's anything good that can come out of that. But there is a level of resilience that happens when you have that kind of a challenge that you get through. And for me, it was later in business, a few years later, that I was sitting in a review meeting, and my boss was in a position where he was going to give me a lousy performance appraisal. And I could just see that he was all bent out of shape about this, and he thought he was hurting me, and it was I had to stop myself from laughing because I knew I thought to myself, he thinks he's hurting me with this, that this could hurt me. I've been hurt way more this, in fact, nothing in the rest of my life could ever hurt me as much as this one thing did. So the rest of my life is sort of free and clear. I'm like Superman, right? I'm invulnerable. You can't hurt me. No one can hurt me ever again. And that was one of the kind of, if there was any kind of good that came out of Eric's passing, that had to be it, was this feeling of I'm invulnerable.
What an interesting takeaway from that, that I have experienced the deepest grief of losing a child. And now, by comparison, there isn't anything else that can touch that. And I survived this. And that means I can survive anything. You are Superman.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head.
Wow. So you then raised your beautiful daughter, and now she's an only child. She
Right.
thinks.
Yeah,
Everybody
she thinks.
thinks.
Yep. Yeah.
How old was she when she discovered that she had a sister?
Oh my God. Well, so this would have been she was born in 84. So we found out in 2019. So she was an adult in her 30s
Okay.
when she learned of this.
So
Yeah,
they,
it was funny when I was sitting here on the porch here in Phoenix, and I get a call from my cousin Roger Larsen in California. And he says, "Hey, cuz, you sitting down?" I said, "Well, I can be." And he goes, "You should sit down." And so I sat down and he said, "Hey, you've got a daughter." I said, "Yeah, I know. You've met her. You know my daughter, Ginger." And he goes, "No, no, no. You've got another daughter. And she just wrote me an email and I'm forwarding it to you and you should read it." And cuz I know you'll do the right thing.
wow.
So Maggie comes out on the porch and says, "Well, what was that all about?" I said, "Well, it was Roger, and he said I have a daughter." And so we got my computer out and opened the portable computer and found this beautiful, eloquent letter from uh, Christy Will in Minnesota, talking about how she had done a DNA test and found that this guy named Paul Stephen Larsen was her biological father. And she said, "Look, I don't want to impose on your life or anything, but it's pretty conclusive." And could this have happened? And so Maggie quickly does the math on her fingers and goes, "Oh yeah, that would happen before me, so I'm okay."
Yeah, I was going to ask about that because you're reading this email with your wife,
Yeah,
and this child is not her child.
right.
So there is some, and finding out that you have another child, depending on the circumstances, can be delightful or terrifying. It could
Yeah,
also damage the relationship with your spouse. So I'm glad that in your situation it was, oh, we're good. We're
yeah. She was instantly good. She realized this had happened before we'd even met, and many years before we'd met. So
wow.
it's been a wonderful thing. And we just got back from high school graduation up there and with the oldest granddaughter, and we see them probably two, three, four times a year. They come down here or we go up there and see them.
That's fantastic. And how far away are they?
They're
What's
in
the time
Minnesota
basis?
and we're in Phoenix.
Oh, okay. So we got a couple flights in there
Yeah, or bus ticket. Yeah, yeah.
or a
Yeah.
bus
That's
ticket.
like, no, I'm just kidding. No buses.
Very long. Very long. Well, I'm so glad. I'm so glad that you were able to be able to say, well, you know what? Look at this beautiful bonus daughter and this beautiful bonus family. And now you can be a part of her life
Yeah,
and she can be a part of yours and you can be richer. And as we're talking about hearts, and you mentioned that the physical heart issue, which was so hard, is nothing compared to the healing of an emotional wound. And it's our children. They bring us the greatest joy and they bring us the deepest sorrows because we love them so much. It's just our world.
yeah. It's really interesting. That's Linda, I'm glad you brought that up because I noticed something when I got involved with the Miss Foundation. The Miss Foundation is an organization created by Dr. Joanne Cacciatore, who specializes, well, they're especially, it's their only mission in life is to help people grieving from the loss of a child or the loss of a brother or son. And I went to a conference when I first got involved with them where there was a whole probably 150, 200 people that had shared one thing in common. They'd all lost a child. And I noticed that they appeared to be parenting differently. They didn't, when the kid would, one of the kids would start to get upset and misbehave or whatever, instead of like yelling or disciplining the child, they would get down and they'd look the child in the face and talk to them. What's going on? Why are you, what's going on with you? Are you okay? Um, and I think it's because that parents who have lost a child, the aspirations for the living children um, go way, way down. They don't have to win the game. They don't have to be the best player. They don't have to get an A. They just have to live.
And that's enough. I think when you talked about perspective, we talked about it in the terms of I've experienced the greatest pain and nothing else can touch me. Another perspective shift is I recognize the value of having this child in my life, and just being is enough. And like you said, I don't need you to make me proud. Let's put some air quotes around that
Yeah.
by winning the game or doing something. You're enough right here, right now. And I talked to a parenting expert not too long ago, and she said that her secret to being a wonderful parent is recognizing how amazing and glorious these children are, and to see them for who they are, and to love them for who they are. And when you can do that without requiring a horrible tragedy in order to recognize it, I think you've won the prize.
Yeah.
You are. And as you're telling your story, I have a grandson who got cancer at age 5 months. And
Sorry.
I I wasn't sure if we were going to keep him or if we were going to lose him. And I thought if we lose him, I would really like for his life experience not to always be in the hospital. I'd like it to be joyful. And for us, fortunately, that's the way it worked out. And then as he was a little boy and into trouble, and he's 3 years old and he breaks the glass in the front door, and you're frustrated. But I was also thinking, he's still here. He's alive. He's alive and he can break the glass in the front door. And it just changes everything. Wouldn't it be beautiful if we could open our eyes and see the value of people? Not just children, but all of us, without requiring a tragedy to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. It uh, it did change the way I parented when Ginger got into high school, and she probably because of a science teacher decided she really liked science a lot. And she did a couple of science experiments that required me to build ridiculous things like fish tanks um, in our house. So in our basement was full with fish tanks and goldfish for her science experiments. And I remember my cousin coming over to help me because he's more mechanical than I am, and I couldn't figure out how to get the glue to hold so that they wouldn't leak because she had to have them specify a certain amount of gallons in each one. And he's looking at me like, "Why are you doing this? What this is dumb, you know?" And it's like, Well, I'm doing it because she wants it. And I'm here to support whatever it is that she wants to do as long as it's within, hey, you want to do that? I'm not going to ask any questions. I'll just kind of do whatever it is. And she got very involved in science, and turned out to be a very good thing.
Oh, I'm glad. So, how did the fish experiment work out? Did they survive?
Well, she learned an interesting thing about science. Her hypothesis was that if you put a goldfish in a certain size tank, let's say 1 gallon, and then you put another one in 5 gallons and another one in 10 and another one in 15, multiple fish in these, that they would get bigger to expand to the size of whatever container that they were in. So we had these multiple containers and all these maybe 40, 50 goldfish that we were taking care of in this thing. And every week she would take them all out and measure and weigh them on this scale and then put them back into these different containers. And at the end of the experiment, her hypothesis that they would get bigger, grow more based on the size of the tank, proved out to be totally wrong.
Really?
Okay. And what she learned about science was that's a successful experiment.
Yes, because it's learning more truth, not necessarily saying I'm right.
Exactly.
And if we could look at everything that way with our experiences and with our conversations, even if it's just, I learned something, rather than saying, well, if my hypothesis wasn't correct, if I wasn't right, if you prove that I'm wrong, then that somehow makes me less. And then we get our egos all tied up into our whatever our position is. And then we don't get along very well.
Yeah, I think that, yeah, you hit it on the head. Do you do that?
Am
Do
I?
you find okay finding information that is not what you wanted it to be?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's why part of the reason why I love having these conversations is I learn from you. I learn from different people. And in order to learn, that means I have to have the humility to say, I don't know everything. I have space to be able to learn. Now, there are some times where I have something where I really think I know it, and I have to rethink, like, oh, give me a minute to chew on that one. I have to backpedal and rethink. But it's not the end of the world to be wrong.
Yeah. Somebody, a wiser person than me, once said that one of the ways you can tell a highly intelligent person is if they spend more time uh, researching and thinking about the things that are opposed to what they believe than supportive of what they believe. How
That's
much time do we spend in the opposite frame of mind of the people or the ideas that we normally would not think about?
that's an interesting point of view.
Yeah,
And I think it also takes I don't know, some confidence and some humility to be able to say, this is what I believe, this is what you believe. We don't agree.
yeah,
And I can agree to disagree. And
yeah,
we can still be friends, even if we are not, because the truth is there's nobody who is 100% on board. We've talked about how we're a tapestry. We have multiple threads, we have multiple pieces, and some threads are very strong and very important. Like if you have lost a child, that thread, that common thread with other people, you have an instant bond. And
hmm,
other things where you have a common thread don't matter so much. But when we notice what's common, we we have something to talk about. We are connected. We feel like we're one. When we're looking at all of the threads that are different, then we think, oh, you're not one of us. You're an outsider. I don't know. Sometimes we consider people who are not the same to be a threat.
exactly. And sometimes it I I have a friend who very opposite side of the political equation from me.
Hmm.
Um, but I learned somewhere, a few years ago, we'd known each other there for 3, 5 years, and we avoided certain subjects, but I loved parts of the things where he was interested in what I was interested in. But it always bothered me about this certain, the disagreement on politics. And I learned uh, that he had a special needs grandson
Mm.
that and all the things that he was doing to support that boy. And it just changed everything. I just now I I in fact, here's another one. No, I can't say that one. All right, I'll say it anyway. Um, I have a son-in-law that I disagree with on some things, but he loves my sister. He gets a pass on everything else because he loves my sister. And he's never stopped loving her. And it's so obvious. So
That's beautiful.
he just, it's and everybody we meet, even though sometimes I think it's important if we stop for a minute, what would we think about them if differently if we knew X or Y? If we knew they'd lost a child, if we knew that their parents had passed away or something like that, the week before, how would we treat people differently if we had that consciousness, right?
And treat people with a little bit of grace, a
Yeah.
little bit of compassion
It's
and
what you do every day.
understanding.
I can see you, Linda. I can listen to your podcast. That seems to be the way you live your life. I just love it.
I've heard it said that if we treat people like they are in the middle of, this great tragedy in their life and there's something hard, we will be right most of the time
Huh?
because everybody has something. It's in the past, the present, sometimes it's in the future, and sometimes it's all of the above. But if we can just treat them like, maybe they're having a hard day. There's probably something going on that I'm not privy to, and that's okay. I don't need to know everybody's problems,
Yeah, yeah.
but I can, give them a pass. It's okay.
That's brilliant. I'm gonna try that.
Yeah, sometimes. Oh, well done. Well, let's see. You have so many facets to you, and we've talked about some deep and heartfelt things. Do we want to lighten a little bit? Can you want to tell us a little about your motorcycle
Yes. So
travels?
I've been lucky to ride motorcycles all over the world and get paid for it. So that was a fun part of my life. And another thing, I managed to buy these three iconic yellow cars that turned out, I didn't know it at the time, but it turned out that they were very, very special cars. And I was just lucky enough to appreciate them before other people did. And they were one of them, the Lotus Elan, was in my life for over 50 years. One car dragged it all over the country. It went from me for bought it in Minnesota. It went from me to California. Then it went and it always got the best spot on the movie van, right? Got to be in the right up with all the delicacies and went to New York, then to Minneapolis, then to Phoenix, and I finally let it go here a couple of years ago, but not before rebuilding it. I wrote a book about the rebuilding of it, which is on the website, called A Mistress in the Garage. And the title of the book came about because when we were married, I'd had that car about 10 years before I met Maggie. And at our wedding reception, my aunt went up to her and said, "Well, now that Steve is married, I imagine he'll be selling that little yellow girl catcher of his." And my wife looks at Effie for a moment and she says, well, Effie, if my husband is going to have a mistress, I think I'd like to keep her in the garage where I can keep an eye on her." So she was true to her word. She never begrudged a day in that Lotus. She gave up riding it after a while because it's kind of uncomfortable. But she was all for it. So
That is beautiful and good for her.
yeah,
I'm glad that you're able to continue to have joy in the things that you love. And we talked a little bit about different facets. So if somebody only knew, okay, this is Steve Larsen who has this gorgeous yellow Lotus and who gets paid to ride motorcycles. And you've ridden, let's see, 18 countries, 43 states. And if you just saw that, I mean, that sounds sexy, glorious, amazing. And people would say, oh, wow, he has it all. And and I guess you do. But
yeah,
there's so much more to you. You have depth. And isn't it interesting that sometimes the things that give us real depth in our life are not the shiny, glittery, glowy things that everybody looks at and says, whoa, I want some of that.
yeah.
It's actually the heartaches where people say, I don't want any of that. Or, I've been through it. I get you.
Hmm.
Hmm. Something to think about.
Yeah. No, it's true. And I think that the way you talked about that everybody's got these little pockets that other people don't know about. That was probably why I wrote the book more than anything else, was to expose business people to the fact that I had this heart situations, and the people that knew my health situation didn't know what my motorcycle stuff was. And the people that had read my motorcycle articles had no idea that I also worked in tech. And so it was sort of like, well, let's pull those shades off and let's tell them all. Let's let them all know the other aspects. And in doing it and talking with other people about it, I learned that that's true for everybody. I wasn't unique like that. Everybody identified with this idea that there are parts of my life that these people over here have no idea. You probably have friends, Linda, that don't even know that you have a podcast.
Hmm. Yes, that's beautiful. Isn't it wonderful that we're not just one-dimensional, flat cartoon characters? We're three-dimensional.
Yeah.
We are multidimensional. There's more to us. And when you get to know people, you get to know even more. What I love is when you learn more about someone, you like them more and more and more. Sometimes you learn more about somebody and you think, oh, I liked you better when you were flat.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, excellent. Well, thank you. This has been a very enjoyable conversation for me. I thank you. Is there anything else you would like to make sure that we cover before we close today?
No, you did it. You did a fantastic job of pulling out things that I had no idea that we would talk about. So thanks very much. I really appreciated the time.
Oh, I appreciate you. In closing, I'd like to share a quote by James Baldwin. He said, you think your pain and your heartbreak are unprecedented in the history of the world, but then you read. It was books that taught me that the things that tormented me most were the very things that connected me with all the people who were alive, who had ever been alive. Today, I invite our listeners who have experienced pain and heartbreak to connect with others through their stories. See you next time on Linda's Corner. Thanks for tuning in to Linda's Corner podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with your friends to help us inspire even more listeners. Be sure to visit hopeforhealingfoundation.org for free and affordable resources to help you overcome life's challenges. And explore healingbreathworkdetox.com, where you'll find transformative tools for deep inner healing and lasting change. Also, don't forget to check out my books, Crushed, A Journey Through Depression, and You Got This, an action plan to calm fear, anxiety, worry, and stress. Your journey to hope, healing, and happiness starts here.